Yeah.
Hi there. Thanks for coming on today and doing this interview and exercise program with me. Uh,
Cool.
my name's McKinsley, just to say that again. And I'm just going to ask you a couple questions today. And yeah. So the first question I have is what has been your relationship with exercise and physical activity in your life leading up to this point?
Gotcha. I've been pretty physically active since like the age of 4 with like skiing, soccer, basketball, did track for a little bit. Um, but the main way I've achieved like my physical activity goals and just like feeling good about myself is through basketball. I've played since like fourth grade, played all the way up through senior year and a little bit after that. Um, Pretty competitively. And then after that in college, I've kind of picked up weightlifting. Kind of had not really body issues per se, but in basketball, a lot of people, I'm pretty skinny. I'm like 190 pounds, 6'9". So I've always been told like, oh, you got to get bigger. Um, so weightlifting has kind of been a big part of that. And kind of seen some progress and kind of helped me feel even better about myself recently. And just also one of the more fun ways that I've kind of been able to be active and kind of in my own way like choose how I'm active this time around. So um, yeah, that's mainly how I've been active. But
Yeah, that I totally understand that. Like it's really fun to play a lot of sports growing up and get involved in physical activity that way, but to have some sense of control over how you choosing to be physically active and then seeing the results you want can be super rewarding. So that's awesome. Um, Along those same lines, what has been your relationship with sedentary behavior in your life leading up to this point? And also, if you've had a relation, like what has your relationship been with eating as well up until this point?
gotcha. Um, Sedentary behavior. Up until maybe like now, I really have not had a ton of opportunity for sedentary behavior. Since like fourth grade, I've pretty much played basketball every day or done soccer or track in between that. Um, yeah. So if it wasn't school or like learning, which would be the main sedentary behavior that I'd probably engage in, I was always playing basketball or working out, playing basketball with friends, shooting drills, practice for 4 or 5 hours a day, like whatever it was. Um, so now it's a lot more just because of having to work and pay for groceries and that kind of stuff. I work at a fitness center, which is nice. So sometimes I can work out during my shifts, but a lot of that is like sitting down for 5, 6 hours at a time talking to customers, or
Yeah.
I can get up and walk around as I'm a manager, but that is definitely I get a lot more sedentary behavior than I normally do. And I'm also in EMT class now, so from like 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day, we get 5 minute breaks every on the hour, and then we get an hour lunch break that I like to go fart around in a park. But um, yeah, we're in a classroom setting, kind of pretty much sitting down. Sometimes we do activities and like trainings and that kind of stuff. But I would probably say, I don't know, a lot of my time now is sedentary behavior, which I don't love. But then again, it is kind of necessary. And then going to your other question with my relationship with eating, right?
Mhm.
Um, I've never really had a problem with it. My dad's a great cook, so I've always loved eating. I have a crazy metabolism, so I've never really been able to gain or lose weight. So I can pretty much eat whatever I want, whenever I want. In fact, I've always been encouraged to eat more. I've never been able to eat as much as I probably should with the amount of physical activity that I've partaken in. So yeah, I'd say I have a pretty healthy relationship. In college, maybe it's a little less because got a little less moolah to spend and eat with, but yeah, so I would say it's pretty healthy. But
Well, that's very understandable. And I'm sure the shift in your sedentary behavior, just how much you're sitting versus when you were growing up has definitely been little bit shocking on your body, but I can tell just from because your physical activities growing up were so vigorous, like your tendencies to try to work out during your shifts or go on walks during your lunch break or something like that. Like I can definitely tell physical activity is still in the forefront of your mind, which is huge. Especially going forward in your life as you'll probably work more and more and have more and more sedentary behavior moving forward with all of that. But it sounds like you have a really good relationship with eating, and are still kind of finding the balance with sedentary behavior, but that can be a long process. But it seems like you're on a really good path so far. Um, let's see. Are there, I know that you've done a ton of different types of physical activity growing up, but right now you said you're predominantly weightlifting. Are there any types of exercise that you've been feeling inspired or interested in trying recently? And if so, what has like held you back from trying them up until this point?
Yeah, so definitely kind of getting bored of just weightlifting. Um, I've definitely neglected my cardiovascular health and like endurance wise. I try to get in like a 20-30 minute bike ride after my weightlifting sessions, but depending on how tired I am or, what I got to do the rest of the day, I I can't always do that, right? Um, but I've definitely been interested in some yoga. My girlfriend took me a couple months ago and it was pretty fun. And I don't know, it was good. It was hot yoga, so I felt like there was a component of endurance. I also kind of have like back issues, and being 6'9", joints obviously are going to deteriorate a little bit. So I felt like it could definitely help with that. And then there's also like strength components of yoga as well. So like joint health, that kind of stuff. And then also my fitness center offers like body combat classes, which I think are really cool. Just a different way to move, really fun way to move. And then I've kind of been wanting to try to get back into the basketball world a bit. I don't know entirely how I feel just because I got pretty burnt out of it from all of the basketball I did growing up. But it is like a pretty core tenet of maybe not my personality, but what I like to do or like to do. So like losing that entirely kind of feels not sinful, but like
It's just a shock to your
yeah, a
routine.
shock. Yeah, yeah,
It totally makes sense. So I get why, and I think it's a balance. But I think, yeah, your interest. I mean, I think hot yoga is a great way to not only get strength and conditioning and cardiovascular health, but also to focus on mobility and flexibility, especially being like 6'9" and suffering with like joint issues and joint problem. That's a great way to kind of prevent that and help and aid all of that stuff. And then the body combat sounds super cool. And the program that I've kind of designed is kind of to aim, especially for athletes who played a ton of different sports growing up. I think there's a really big push for being super excited about exercise because there's so many new types of it. And so kind of relearning to love exercise and not just be a redundant chore almost you have to check off every day if you're only weightlifting, to kind of engage your mind and have fun with it by doing a body combat class, like you said, or hot yoga, or doing like a spin class. And or if you have any interest in like working out outside, I know that you mentioned like skiing and hiking and stuff like that. And so like kind of getting back into that too, I think is a great way to kind of engage your mind into stuff like that. So that's awesome.
for sure. I think a component of it is also like if I do so much weightlifting, I don't want to get burnt out with like how much I love basketball and how much I was burnt out with that, right? So, I mean, I think diversity with everything that what you do, everything in moderation is a key facet to everything in our life. So, um, I think that kind of balancing uh, your lifestyle is great. And you
I
won't
totally
overtrain one thing and you'll be well rounded, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know you've mentioned burnout with basketball and things like that. What have been your biggest struggles with physical activity leading up until this point? And I know you just mentioned you're worried that you might get burnout from weightlifting. Do you have any fears about struggling with physical activity moving forward in something like in this program?
Um, my biggest struggles with working out so far or being physical activity is probably finding the time. And I think that's why I've gravitated to just strength training so much, is because I can get in there hour and a half. I work there, so I have a free pass. It's easy to do, right? Some of the other things like hot yoga or say hiking or skiing or backpacking or whatever, you really got to like find time for, and it's hard to take time out of like my work schedule, school schedule, that kind of stuff. And then what was the second part of the question? Sorry. Oh, and then just what obstacles I kind of find now. I would just say it's a lot of like the schedule issues. And also I like being comfortable. So like branching out and doing new things, at least on my own, is kind of scary. I know I mentioned that my girlfriend took me, but she's kind of lapsed out of doing the hot yoga thing for a bit. So it's hard for me to like kind of break into that culture and feel like normal being like 6'9", and we got a bunch of little yoga moms around me at like 5'4", I'm like, oh, what am I doing here? Um, Kind of feel goofy, kind of feel out of place. So I feel like that's definitely definitely a barrier for me. Kind of trying to have that confidence or ability to just do that on my own and finding the time for it. So
Yeah, I can totally understand that because I think when you are uncomfortable doing an exercise, it takes you longer to even like figure it out or like
there's
set yourself, just as probably when you started weightlifting, setting yourself, learning how to even work the machines is really hard, or like maybe if you're doing hot yoga, if you're not used to doing the poses, like those aren't going to feel as good because it takes more effort to put into it. But I think the more you get into the routine of it, and I know it can be quite uncomfortable at first, and I totally understand the fear, but I think slowly chipping away that uncomfortability by just some exposure is awesome. But yeah, I think that totally makes sense. I know you mentioned you've talked a little bit about your weight and your metabolism and your relationship kind of with basketball. Um, how is your relationship with your body in terms of physical activity, and how has it fluctuated throughout your life?
um I would say I never really, I don't know, my body did all the things I wanted to do and it did it well. And it did it at a high level. Probably pretty much up until high school, freshman year, I made the varsity team. Um, and, obviously varsity, you got some bigger boys on there. That was probably the first time I really was like, oh, I'm kind of skinny, and had coaches tell me, oh, you got to bulk up, got to gain pounds or whatever to get on the court. Um, my family's pretty skinny. My dad was super skinny all the way up until he was like 25. So it's not like a abnormal thing for like my family or for me. But that was the first time I was really like, oh shit, I gotta put on some weight. Or I was like, oh, I'm not what I should be. So I never really took it that personally. I was always like, my dad was pretty good about like, oh, you'll gain weight in the future, don't worry about it, whatever. He was very supportive, and like I never developed any like eating disorders or like had that bad of body dysmorphia or anything like that. Again, I think it was balanced out by like being pretty good and being able to kind of hold my own either way. But like obviously after 4 years, 5 years of people telling you that, it definitely gets to you a little bit. And I would say that it didn't really bother me and never really has up until maybe like college, and I wasn't really being physically, or I didn't have that like physical activity like basketball to do every day. So I was like, oh, what should I do? Oh, weightlifting. What's the main purpose of weightlifting? Get stronger, get bigger. I always felt like I was also kind of weak. So I like the feeling of being able to like lift heavy things or being strong and feeling like good about my body and seeing um the scale change a little bit, um and just being able to kind of feel more confident about myself and kind of not be looked on as like a weakling kind of. But so I would say it's definitely morphed and like grown and changed over the years, but I would say overall my relationship with my body is pretty good. But
That's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, it sounds like it's your reflection on it has been really awesome. And I'm sure yeah, hearing that from coaches and other teammates basketball was probably could be discouraging at times, but it seems like you have a really great outlook on it and
Yeah.
you're able to problem solve too with
Yeah.
weightlifting and be motivated. Sorry, go ahead.
The other thing, sorry, I want to mention is I think it was a fear thing too for a while because I always remember disliking weightlifting in high school, um, and really hating lifting around other people and like with like team workouts and stuff because I'd never be able to like do as much as like I mean I could do as much as the weakest person on the team,
Right.
you know what I mean? But I couldn't do as much as like say some starting teammates. So I
Mhm.
think it was a lot of fear, and I feel like I like conquered that a little bit and overcame that fear and kind of built that confidence through weightlifting. But yeah, anyways, just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, no, that's super important. Yeah, again, I think you have a really good reflection on it and like you were kind of able to turn that fear into motivation, which is huge. And that's a great way to find motivation to start conquering it and kind of getting over it. So that's awesome. Yeah, so it sounded like one of your fitness goals in the past was to put on muscle. What is would you say is your current fitness goal right now, or what do you hope to reach at the end of this program as a goal?
Um, I don't know. I kind of just hit a milestone of gaining 10 pounds over the past couple of months. I hit 190. I think 200 would be crazy. I don't think that'll happen very fast or within like a month or 2 months, probably three, four. But I would say that, and then just more, I want to be like more cardiovascularly fit. I'm not out of shape per se, but I'm also not in the best shape I've ever been, not in the best shape that I was in basketball. Um, so just getting kind of back to that spot is important to me. But yeah.
Yeah, I think those are great goals. What is some like intrinsic motivation that you have to reach those goals? How do you feel motivated to reach those goals?
Um, I'll say a lot of it's just health related. I'm very mindful of my health. I'm mindful about what I eat. I'm not trying to eat a bunch of junk food. But I just think that it's very important. And from just what I want to be a doctor. And so I think being very mindful about the entire body and all of the body systems is like very, very important for our overall health. And our cardiovascular health is obviously one of the main things that keeps us alive, and it's the one of the easiest to take care of. So I think that just kind of being healthy for my future. I really want to be able to be fit and be able to move, and especially being 6'9", I really want to kind of be able to be mobile later in life. So I just want to kind of make sure I can do that as best as possible. Make sure I can enjoy all of my later lives. Make sure I don't have crazy pain or thrown out back or be all hunched by the time I'm 60. So I just think that's probably my main motivation, just overall health, and just being in good shape
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
setting, yeah, and
Your
just setting
path.
good patterns because I know I won't have the metabolism that I have forever. I don't want a little pop belly or anything like that. So
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's a great place to find motivation, especially if you want to be a doctor, kind of. I mean, you see the direct benefits of exercise every day in patients, and you want to be able to practice medicine for a long time and stay active and stay healthy for later in life. So I think that's an awesome place to find motivation. So right now, how confident do you feel in making the changes that need to be made in order to reach your fitness goals of um, putting like on more weight and improving your cardiovascular health?
in terms of putting on more weight, I would say I'm pretty confident I would just be doing the same kind of thing. However, I'm not sure entirely how that will come into play with like the cardiovascular thing because cardio obviously burns a lot of calories and you need calories to gain weight, right? So maybe a 7 out of 10. And I would say that I'm confident about my ability to um like embark on my cardiovascular journey. However, like if we're talking about a hot yoga or like expanding my Types of activity, I would say I'm a bit more doubtful, just because of like time constraints and um, kind of accessibility issues with school and I don't know, skiing, backpacking, all these other things that I want to do. So, um, yeah, maybe a little bit less confident about that, but
Yeah, which I think is totally fair. And I think also, um, as you begin to try maybe these new types of exercise in order to improve your cardiovascular health, it'll feel like it takes less time. I know it's very daunting at first, but the more of a routine you get into that, the quicker or the less time it'll take because you'll have figured it out much more, and then you'll get into more of a routine. But can totally understand how it would be daunting at first, but that's great. You're confident about putting on weight through weightlifting. I think it's a great place to be right now to start. Um, with these fears in mind, kind of what kind of support do you feel like you need to meet these fitness goals, whether that's from friends or family or from me as the one designing this program? Where do you feel like you need the most support that you're unable to give yourself?
um, coming from like a team sports background, I think that a lot of the times it's very easy to motivate yourself when you have someone doing it with you. Um, Especially if you're like competing against them. I know that in things that I'm good at, I'm pretty competitive. So, and just in general, I think it's fun to just have somebody there to kind of push you and just also have like working out great's fine, but sometimes it's really nice to have a partner just there to have fun with, push you, whatever. So I think for myself, maybe one out of every three workouts, maybe I don't know, one out of every two, or maybe less than that, whatever. It would be nice to just have a partner. And then also probably just like scheduling, kind of working those workouts into my schedule somehow, or um, I don't know, just carving time out of my schedule. And then, of course, money issues,
Yeah.
struggling college students. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I particularly have the money for the hot yoga punch passes, but it was fun nonetheless.
Yeah, I think it would be a great ways. I think not everyone realized that a lot of like fitness clubs, like even the one you work at, like they offer a lot of exercise classes, like your combat class that you're the gym. So maybe looking into that if they have yoga or if they have cycling or if they have Pilates or something like that, and trying to take advantage of the resources that you have now. Because I think sometimes these bigger exercise companies and programs can be really good, but they seem very flashy and therefore awesome. All usually very expensive too. But looking kind of locally, especially if because you're working at your gym, that it is covered, seeing if there's any way you can get involved in some of these programs that way. And I totally get working out with people to, especially if you're a competitive style person. I think group fitness classes, especially if it's something you're new at and trying, are great because you shouldn't be constantly comparing yourself to other people, but it kind of gives you the sense of a team sport when you're all working out at the same time. And I think that can be very motivating and can push you to keep going or go back to the class or try something a little bit harder in the class or the new type of exercise that you're doing. Um, so I think that totally makes sense. And as the person leading this program, like maybe I can look into some of those other group fitness classes or be like, hey, this event is happening at this time. And maybe it's like paddleboarding, like a group paddleboard thing, and seeing if it works with your schedule or just kind of finding the opportunities. Cause I think a lot of energy and time goes into just finding them. So kind of having help and support finding them. And then all you have to do is show up, I think is great. That's really what kind of we aim to do. Um, so if you, as you go through this program, if you get to the end of it and you find that you didn't reach your fitness goals, how do you think you'll feel? And how do you think you'll feel moving forward if you don't succeed the ways that you want to?
Um, I would say at least with my weight goal of 200, um, I was trying to gain 10 pounds at like 180 for year before I actually did it. So I don't know. I don't think I'll be that discouraged. I think everything's a process. Um, you're not going to make great leaps and bounds in a month. It's all very like slow little progressive steps that get you to where you are. And I think that's with anything in life, truthfully. um and again, failure is just like a stepping stone. Go back to the drawing board, change some things, see what you're doing wrong, see what you can do better. In my case, when I gained the 10 pounds, I started drinking protein shakes like religiously every day, which were like 300, 400 calories. And I think that probably just uh, pushed the limit, and I started going to the gym even more obsessively. Not even that obsessively, but just like more disciplined, making sure it was 4 times a week, doing full body, not just hitting a couple things. So um failure definitely doesn't discourage me. I mean, in high school, I think we had maybe total of 20 wins through our 4 years of college basketball or high school basketball. And I was recruited by colleges and stuff like that. So I I learned a good lesson that even within like repeated failure, you can still succeed, and you can still be excellent in what you do, and you can still be rewarded for what you do. I don't know, and I kind of take that in everyday life. I don't know. I just think that you'll always fail at something. Something will always knock you down. It's just whether or not you're able to get back up, or what your attitude is after that, and what you can change and what you can do about it. So
Yeah. Well, it seems like you have a really great outlook on that and knowing that failures happen and you'll come back from them. And that's huge. And I think that makes you very disciplined and very strong-willed and like resistant to failure, from it getting the best of you. So I think that's a really great outlook you have, and will set you up really successfully as your fitness journey continues now and for the rest of your life. Um, yeah, so just kind of to wrap it up, do you have any last thoughts or things that you think could help you become successful in this program, or you're fearful would inhibit you from being successful in this program? And is there anything else you can think of that you would need from me as such a support to help you through this program and this process?
um maybe just, I don't know. Maybe again, finding that time. I I think, I don't know. With me, there's a interesting balance between like knowing that physical activity is really, really good for you, but then also realizing that a lot of physical activity isn't that good for you, as I experienced with burnout. So I just think that it's kind of challenging for like my mindset to be like all in on a bunch of physical activity to reduce my sedentary behavior, when I've experienced um, the emotional distress and kind of challenge that burnout faces. Um, so as much as I do like really want to do all this, I think I definitely uh, can be a bit challenged about the idea when it's like all or nothing, got to do all of this shit, otherwise you're totally screwed. But yeah.
I think could be good, like for us to have some check-ins of, did this much physical activity cause you more harm and distress, or did you find it beneficial? And making sure that everything is within balance with sedentary behavior. Because as you said, it's great to be physically active, but too much physical activity can actually be very harmful, especially as you have experience with burnout in the past. So I think maybe having some check-ins, and you can maybe do some reflections, whether that's writing down or just speaking over video to yourself, of like, hey, this is how I felt today. Um, or this activity made me feel really good, and I'm glad I tried out this new thing. Or maybe one day it's like, oh, I think it probably would have been more beneficial for me to take a nap during this time, or catch up on work. So I think having a lot of reflection, we can definitely incorporate that into the program, into our check-ins. So yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So any last thoughts on your half, or?
I'm really looking forward to working with you, and I hope I'll be able to input the program into my everyday life, and hopefully meet my goals at the end of it. But if not, no worries.
Exactly. Well, we're really excited for you to try some new physical activity and hopefully reach your goals and be as supportful along the way. So yeah, thank you again for um kind of doing this interview with me today, and I'm excited to move forward.
All right.
Thank you.
Mhm.